When you think magic, what first comes to your mind? Controlling the elements, body-changing curses, creating doubles of yourself? We tend to picture the flashiest stuff, the lightning bolts and raising the undead. And why not? They're loud and colorful, they're like candy for the imagination. But when I catch myself daydreaming about magical worlds and how I'd live there, it's rarely about the breeze of energy or turning into animals. Don't get me wrong, I love those kinds of magic. They capture my attention for weeks. But there's another kind of magic, a subtler kind, that captures my attention for years, sometimes decades. Magic that keeps coming back to my thoughts. Magic that makes me look at my world with a new perspective. So today, let's give one of those subtler kinds of magic a chance. Let's talk about language magic. But what do I mean by language magic in this context here? All fiction relies on guiding the audience's attention. If a writer cares about food, you'll read about the caramelized honey. If they care about fashion, you'll read about the red velvet cuffs. If they care about hiking, you'll hear about the 3 different paths across the mountains. And here's the thing. Speculative fiction, and fantasy is included under this umbrella, has this characteristic, the special power to bring this attention shift to a whole new level. Because fantasy is not bound by the rules of reality, writers can tell themselves, I really care about this thing. Perhaps I should make a world where everybody cares about it. Perhaps you really love kung fu movies, not just the fighting, but also the teachings and the wisdom they portray. You create a world where both aspects of kung fu are integral to society. Perhaps you're terrified of the manipulative power that mass media can have over people's behavior when it's controlled by the ultra-rich. So you put this fear and this manipulation into the very essence of your world. In this video here, when I say language magic, this is what I mean. It's not magic with written or verbal components, though there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a special attack with a cool name that you say out loud as you pose. It's not Leviosa nor Leviosa. Language magic is magic that makes you, the reader, think about the delectable nuances and the kaleidoscopic complexities of language. Magic created by writers who really care about language. Writers who think, this thing here, this aspect of how we communicate that I can't stop obsessing about. What if I made a whole world so that everybody else thought about it as much as I do? I think here's where most fantasy essayists would pause to talk about Ursula LeGuin, and specifically her true name magic system, part of the Earthsea series. And it's really the perfect example. In this world building, things have names and nicknames, but everything also has a true name, a magical name. And I mean everything, mountains and continents and people and gusts of wind. And knowing the true name gives you power over the thing. At the same time, revealing your true name grants power over you. Revealing your name to other people is also a great act of intimacy and vulnerability, as you will forever tie your destiny to them. It's a fascinating way to think about naming and the semiotic relationship between knowing something's name and knowing what the thing really is. But as perfect as that example might have been, I've been impacted by a recent book that talks about a completely different aspect of language, and I can't stop thinking about it. So, follow me. Now, the common man thinks that silverworking is equivalent to sorcery. He rolled his sleeves up to his elbows as he spoke, shouting so they could hear him over the din. They think that the power of the bars lies in the silver itself, that silver is some inherently magical substance which contains the power to alter the world. He unlocked the left drawer and pulled out a blank silver bar. They're not wholly wrong. There is indeed something special about silver that makes it an ideal vehicle for what we do. I like to think that it was blessed by the gods. It's refined with mercury after all, and Mercury is the messenger god, no? Mercury? Hermes? Does silver not then have an inextricable link to hermeneutics? But let's not get too romantic. No, the power of the bar lies in words. More specifically, the stuff of language that words are incapable of expressing. The stuff that gets lost when we move between one language and another. The silver catches what's lost and manifests it into being. The stuff of language that words are incapable of expressing. This is what Babel's magic system is all about, and I can't stop thinking about it. Just to be clear, there's so much more than that. This is a magic system that explores cultural colonization and how systems of power can weaponize the beauty of our diversity against us. But this is a single YouTube video. I can only cover so much, and this time I'm choosing to cover the language aspect of it. Okay? Great. In this magic system, instead of spells, we have match pairs between words in different languages. Two words that are the best possible translation between those languages, but where the translation is not quite right. Something is lost in translation, and this something is the magic. For example, the match pair between the French word parcelle and the English word parcel. Once upon a time, both those words in their respective languages, and that's not fiction, that's reality, they meant a subdivision of land, like a part of a bigger estate. They both evolved to mean a parcel, an item of business. But in French, the word retained its connotation for small subdivisions, while in English, this meaning was lost over time. The thing lost in translation, the small subdivision connotation, this is where the magic lies here. So activating a silver bar with the parcel match pair will make a package weight just a fraction of its original load. Remember when I said we'd be exploring subtle magic? How about the little shifts in meaning, the little nuances you have to navigate when translating a sentence from one language to another? How about magic that cares about how words came to be, how they evolved over time? Now let's see how the pairs are described in the book. He began carving a word into one end of the bar. I'm just showing you a simple one. The effect will be quite subtle, but see if you feel it. He finished writing on that end, then held it up to show them. Heimlich, German for the secret and clandestine, which is how I'll translate it to English, but heimlich means more than just secrets. We derive heimlich from a Proto-Germanic word that means home. Put together this constellation of meaning, and what do you get? Something like the secret, private feeling you get from being somewhere you belong, secluded from the outside world. As he spoke, he wrote the word clandestine on the flip side of the bar. The moment he finished, the silver began to vibrate. Heimlich, he said, clandestine. The world shifted. Something bound them, some intangible barrier blurred the air around them, drowned out the surrounding noise, made it feel as though they were the only ones on a floor they knew was crowded with scholars. They were safe here. They were alone. This was their tower, their refuge. They were no strangers to this magic. They had all seen silver work in effect before. In England, it was impossible to avoid. But it was one thing to know the bars could work, that silver work was simply the foundation of a functioning, advanced society. It was another thing to witness with their own eyes the warping of reality, the way words seized what no words could describe and invoked a physical effect that should not be. Clearly, this is a writer who cares about language, and more specifically, about the etymology of words and the beauty of the parallel evolution of idioms. And hey, I also find those things fascinating, but I probably don't think about it as much as the author R F Kuang does. But then she goes ahead and she builds this whole world for me to reflect upon it. A world where, as I read, I'm gently led to those thoughts, to her world, to the things she deeply cares about. And I want to be taken there. I find it a privilege to be taken to the place of care. I can sense just how much she thought about all of this. I know what ended up on the pages is just a small fraction of the passion that manifested this whole world. This is the sort of magic, the sort of world building that keeps coming back to my imagination. Every time I see an imperfect translation in my life outside of books, I think about match pairs and the halls of Babel. It might not be as flashy as fire, but it helps me reframe my world. This magic captivated me so much that I did something unusual, and I decided to create my own match pair, as if I was a student at Babel preparing myself for my first silver examination. It was a really cool exercise, and I made a short video about it. It's on my Patreon page. You don't have to be a patron to watch it. It's free for everyone. I just hosted it over there. So if you're interested in this whole linguistic exploration and maybe interested in writing your own match pair and see how that works, check it out. I'll leave the link in the description. Okay, we've seen how this magic guides us to think about certain aspects of language, the meanings lost in translation and the evolution of languages. But what if we wanted to create our own language magic? Where would we start? We need to start with the topics we care about. When it comes to language, or to anything really, what are your areas of interest? What do you care about? What do you think about when your mind wanders? Personally speaking, a few months ago, I had a very heartfelt language moment when I visited my hometown of Rio de Janeiro. Let me first tell you about the raw sensation, and later we turn it to magic, okay? I moved away from my country of origin 7 years ago, and since then, I'm never the local. On the contrary, I'm the exotic, the interloper. As I spent my first few weeks visiting Rio, I felt some old linguistic habits coming back to me, some old forgotten slang or exacerbation in accent. And after 3 weeks there, I could communicate this localness. Even though I haven't lived there for years, I had this specialized language, not just Portuguese, a very particular variant that exuded this belonging to the place. I talked with people who live in Rio, who have been living in Rio for years and years, but because they have accents from other regions, they can't communicate the same level of belonging that I can. Crazy stuff. Okay, so that was the raw sensation. Now, how could we create a world, or part of a world, so that other people could be aware of this sensation? And think about it. Picture that. A city of walls. Outer walls, innermost walls. Walls between the different areas and neighborhoods. And not a single gate. In this city, a language barrier is a real physical barrier, and linguistic familiarity is the only key you need to traverse this maze. Speaking the language won't get you very far here, that's just the first step. What really counts here is how local you sound. The slang you know and use, the little embellishment words, the way the city accent shapes the sounds in your mouth. The more you can communicate, the more you can think in the city's lingo, the more walls will open up for you. One day, you might notice a new alley. As your accent gets more prominent, the alleyway opens up into a full avenue and new paths open ahead. Nobody has 100% access to the city. Some areas are restricted for people who still think with the slang from 50 years ago, and other areas are restricted just for kids adopting the newest words. I think following different characters with different relationships with language could be super interesting here, like somebody new trying to blend in, and somebody who came back after years and suddenly lost access to a huge chunk of the city. This could be an interesting way to explore those emotions and sensations I was talking about. I hope you enjoyed this subtler kind of magic, and please let me know in the comments if there's any other type of magic you'd like me to explore, and finish that comment with a slang word from your region or a sentence in your language you think I might not know. If you're new to the channel, here's another video I think you might enjoy, breaking down a different style of nuanced magic, this one all about ritual and Eastern spirituality. And a special thank you to my patrons who give me hope that one day, I might be able to become a full-time professional doing this, making videos for you. And if you want more videos, please consider becoming a patron. It means the world to me. And I'll see you folks next time. Bye!